There are reviews of this book that are like, loved the magic system. Tell me one thing about the magic system. They introduce a character and you're like, bad guy. Wow, Kennedy Ryan. This was a spicy book. Hello everyone, welcome to another monthly reading wrap up. How is it July? We are halfway done with 2026. I say this every year, but this is just crazy. So I read a lot. Wow, looking at my list, I read a ton this month, mainly because I know that I have a lot of work to do in July and August. And so anytime I had just a free day, I would sit down and read. I was reading for like 5-6 hours in one go. Also, my husband was on a solo trip, so I had just a lot of time just like at night in bed reading hours and hours and hours. So I got a lot done. Also, Libby threw a million different holds at me that I needed to finish. I know that I can suspend or like push back holds. I don't. I don't. Okay. So we have a ton to talk about. Very excited. And as always, before we begin, I want to give a shout out to the sponsor of this video, which is Squarespace. Wonderful place to host your online presence, whether it is a blog, whether it is a community, because they have a comment section, a way to connect your social media. They also have email lists. But if you want to open a shop, for example, they have monetization features, really wonderful analytics section as well, free, easy to use templates. So with a couple clicks, you can have a professional looking website. I always recommend it if you want a portfolio or something, a place to send clients to, etc. Or if you're a creator and you want to have a website for brands and things like that. You can play around with Squarespace for free right now at squarespace.com. But when you're ready to launch it to the public, you can go to squarespace.com/carriecanread to get 10% off your first website or domain. Highly recommend. Thank you to Squarespace as always for supporting this channel. Oh man, let me get a sip before we begin. I also did a couple, well, we'll get into it, but like I did a bunch of reading vlogs. So some of these I'm just going to breeze over because you can get my full thoughts and mental breakdowns mostly in my full length video. I'm going to start with a disappointment, a DNF, and one that a lot of people were curious about when I talked about it in my last video, or I might have just talked about it on Instagram. If you aren't following me on Instagram, I do a lot of like short form itty bitty content, and like I try to update people as I'm reading. So people want to know, what's the deal? This pains me. What is the deal with The Thief and The Traitor Bride? Why did I DNF it at 44%? I think last time I talked to you, I said that I was at like 30%. I only made it 14% more. Okay, so The Thief and the Traitor Bride, this is by an author I love. I think a lot of people fell in love with her with The Second Death of Locke, which I really enjoyed. But I actually like even her previous work, which is, she did like an Appalachian horror. I really love this author. So it pains me that I didn't fall in love with this book. And I think some of it is taste, some of it is maybe a miscommunication in the marketing a little bit. So let me tell you about it first. So The Thief and the Traitor Bride is about a thief and a traitor bride. We follow our bride, our female main character, who is sort of running a mafia-esque crime syndicate in her town. I don't know how else to describe it. She basically does shady stuff for this one lady who has kind of helped her rise in the ranks to where she is now, running this crime syndicate. I forget if she's a duchess or a countess or something, but this noble woman is kind of calling the shots, and she'll do anything this woman says because this woman really lifted her from a horrible situation. And she is asked to retrieve a magical item from another kingdom. In order to do that, she needs some contacts, some people who know more about the kingdom than she does. So who's gonna tag along for this adventure but a famous thief? A thief that she is married to, and they haven't spoken in years. And so we follow them on this adventure trying to get this magical object, but we also get flashbacks into how they met, how they fell in love, and eventually how they betrayed each other. And I'm gonna say, first of all, just in terms of personal taste, second chance romance is my least favorite thing in the world. So just keep that in mind, that like I just don't jive with this right off the bat. But this takes place in the same world as The Second Death of Locke, and it's promoted, or it's marketed as being totally separate. Like, this isn't a duology. This just happens to take place in the same world. I strongly disagree with that because you needed to know so much about the countries. You also needed to know it hinges on the ending of the second death of Locke. We jump a couple years and our main characters of the second death of Locke are at the center of basically where I stopped. I mean, maybe the plot completely changes. I don't know. But from where we are at 44%, it hinges on the main character of the second death of Locke. And so I felt a little like, ooh, I'm missing some information because I hadn't read that book in a year or two. So I was like, ugh, I don't remember like the country names. I don't really remember how the second death of Locke ended. Like I just couldn't get into it because I knew I was missing something. I felt like she introduced a lot of new magic and like new world building that wasn't explained very well. So like each kingdom had different magic and ways of using magic. I don't know. I felt like I was really lost. So I really enjoyed the setup in terms of her being, we find out that, you know, her childhood was pretty horrible. She was kind of rescued. And you can tell that this is a toxic relationship between our main girl and her sort of duchess lady. So I was really intrigued by that setup, but it was just really bogged down by me not remembering the world and it not being explained well enough for this to be a completely separate book. I really think, I know it's not a duology, but I think you really need to have read and be up to date with your memories of the second death of Locke. And then on top of that, I just didn't really like the romance. I'm not a second chance girl. And I felt like the flashbacks were okay, but not great, and I just wanted more. I think that their romance, like how we see them fall in love, happened really quickly versus, you know, I also like a slow burn, so wasn't written for me. But yeah, I think other people would and have liked it. Looking at other ARC reviews, this comes out in September. Other people are liking it. The reviews look good, so I think this was just a not for me kind of book, which is so unfortunate because all of her other books have been for me. So if any of you guys have read the ARC, let me know. That is The Thief and the Traitor Bride. Ooh, after that, I actually have the physical. Okay, I was really excited about this one. Whoa, dust, hold on. This is The Ending Writes Itself by Evelyn Clarke. Evelyn Clarke is a pen name. This is actually a collaborative effort between V.E. Schwab and her friend, who is a screenwriter named Kat Clarke. They decided to write a thriller together. Blah. So here's the thing. I'll put it here. Was it extremely readable? Did I read it in one day? Yes, I did. It felt like this was heavily inspired by a kind of Knives Out situation. It was definitely like a wacky ensemble Oh, wait, let me tell you what it's about. I'm so sorry. Essentially, there is an incredibly famous author of thrillers, I believe, every once in a while has salons where he invites other authors to come and write at his creepy ass island estate. Okay, I think it's in Scotland somewhere. It's somewhere foggy as hell. Yeah, foggy and creepy, and everybody comes and lives in his weird castle and writes and creates and etc. It's an honor to be there. So when these 6 writers get an invitation, everybody goes, but they arrive there and they learn that that author is dead. And so now the rules of the game have changed. Instead of just like writing together, being just like literary figures in Scotland for a week, they have to finish his book. He apparently was struggling to finish it, and now he's dead, and what are we gonna do? And so whoever finishes it gets a crazy prize. Like, not only do they get to write this incredible book, because he just didn't finish, I think, the last half or something, they also get like millions of dollars. I mean, everyone wants to win this, okay? You quickly understand that something weird is up. His like assistant and his publisher are really weird, and all the characters are very distinct and odd, very like Knives Out-y, or I would say Glass Onion. So I think this would be an extra good time if you are in the publishing world. I feel like there were a lot of inside jokes. There were a lot of digs, a lot of things that authors themselves who have been through the publishing process would really appreciate about this. It was quite tongue-in-cheek. However, the characters felt very caricature-y, but also the reveal was not good in my opinion. I really didn't like how this concluded. I think that some of the switchings of POVs, like some of the POVs that we got were a little odd. But yeah, overall in terms of like the ending and how this plot actually wrapped up, I was quite disappointed. But I think it was meant to be tongue in cheek. Again, like the very, very end, I think like if you're an author or if you've like been in the publishing game for a really long time, you might get the joke. But for me, as someone who like really enjoys trying to solve thrillers, and this fell a little flat for me, honestly. It was missing something. It felt just a little not challenging, I think. And I love that V.E. Schwab usually has like a kind of, not a challenging element, but I find that a lot of times her characters are unlikable, but in a complex way. In these, like her characters were just like, oh, this is a person you don't like. This is actually, I didn't like anybody. I'm gonna be real. But yeah, this was a bummer, unfortunately for me. But did I read it in one sitting? I did. So that is The Ending Writes Itself. Oh my gosh. After that, really quickly, I feel like if you guys know me, you're gonna be like, Carrie, why on earth did you pick this book up? So, all right. I read Score by Kennedy Ryan, and being upfront, you know I don't like second chance romances, and I also don't like a lot of spice in my books, okay? So I went into this just being like, okay, second chance romance, we'll see. If it's well written, I can still jive, right? Oh my God, even people who like spicy books, I saw reviews that were like, wow, I needed to like take a walk after reading this because, wow, Kennedy Ryan, this was a spicy book. But you know what? The parts that weren't spicy were really good. So let me tell you what it's about. We are dealing with two characters who met at university for just 1 year, and they had this kind of whirlwind romance that was like love at first sight, never felt so right, knocked their socks off kind of thing. And then it ended in a very horrible way, and they haven't spoken for years. We fast forward to present day, where our main girl is a screenwriter, an accomplished screenwriter. I believe she's won Emmys. I mean, she's doing amazing. And then on the other hand, we have our main male character who is a composer and also killing it in the game. And so when they are brought in to work on a project about the Harlem Renaissance that they are both so excited about, they decide, we're going to be professional, we're going to work together, we're going to make this happen because the story that needs to be told is more important than any of our baggage. But they cannot resist the pull, of course. So this is told with a lot of different flashbacks. And what's really interesting about this book is that our main female character, this isn't a spoiler. Hold on. Damn, I don't know if this is a spoiler. Okay, well, our main female character, not only is she a bi woman, very open about it, but she is struggling with some mental health issues that she kind of discovers in university and has to kind of manage it for the rest of her life. And that's a huge part of her story. And I thought that I actually learned a lot through this book. So that's why I'm saying like the parts that were spicy were spicy. But the parts that weren't, I thought were really well handled. And I know that Kennedy Ryan like really cared about how she represented this character and things like that. So I personally felt like I walked away learning a lot, which I always love from books. And this also had the kind of historical romance element where while they're working on this project, you learn a lot about the real life characters kind of in Harlem at the time that they're covering, which was really cool. I would recommend it if you like second chance romance and a lot of spice, like so much. They actually use the word butt stuff, like, do you want to do butt stuff? And I was cracking up. I could not believe. I was like, how did I get here? Me reading about butt stuff. I think my only complaint a little bit is that with the dialogue, everybody said the right things, or even if they didn't say the right things, they just spoke so eloquently. I don't know, maybe I'm just surrounded by people who can't speak well, but everyone spoke like paragraphs, like these really elegant paragraphs sometimes that I would be like, I don't know if those words would come out of my mouth that way. So sometimes the dialogue didn't feel real, but overall, it was written beautifully. I walked away learning things, so I really have no complaints. And I also just like couldn't help but laugh at the spice. It was written well. I would say. It wasn't cringy, other than the amount of times that he had to say butt stuff, but it was very well written. It was, the only issues I really had were like me, a personal taste level. So that is Score by Kennedy Ryan. Please enjoy. Next up, I do have the physical, but it is far away in another room. A highly anticipated read, I think, for everyone who watches this channel. The Last Contract of Isako. This is by Fonda Lee of Jade City. This is a kind of sci-fi, not spy thriller, I wouldn't say. So we follow Isako, who is a swordswoman. She's basically a trained bodyguard, kind of does it all security kind of person. And she is screwed because what she considered to be her last job, she was going to ride this job until the end, let's just say falls through. So she finds herself without a contract, and this world is another world that was built because something happened to Earth and we had to come here. So they are still working on making this planet livable. So they're really obsessed with the amount of resources they have. So if someone isn't pulling their weight, if someone's job is kind of over for them, they are encouraged, if not forced, to retire, in terms of leave the safe bubble of atmosphere and walk out into the part of the planet that we haven't made livable yet, okay? So when she gets one final mission, she decides, okay, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna wrap up my life here, I've got a daughter, you know, and then I guess we're gonna peace out. This mission turns into unraveling everything that she thought that she knew. And you know what? I love Fonda Lee's writing style so much. So I ate this up just because it's so readable. I loved reading about the world. I think her world building is impeccable. I loved the side characters as well, but I will say in about, like, I would say the 50% mark, we get a reveal and the story takes a turn. And I felt like once we got that reveal, everything became quite obvious. And when something becomes obvious to me, the plot immediately becomes a drag, because I'm like, okay, I know what happened. I think I know what happened. So like, let's just get to the point and prove me right, you know? So I felt like the last half moved significantly slower, just because it was like, why isn't everybody else picking up what everyone else is putting down? Like I put the pieces together, right? But I still thought it was really great as a standalone sci-fi. I also love an older character. And like I said, I really like the side characters. I'm a little torn. It's more like, I don't give things a numerical rating, but I would say it was like a 4-star instead of a 5-star. And I was kind of expecting 5 just because Fonda and all of the ingredients going into this. But I did have a really good time. I think if you like sci-fi, you'll just appreciate the world that she created. And yeah, so that was The Last Contract of Isako. And then I have another physical. Look at me. Okay, this is a book that I read in one sitting. I think it's 150 pages. She Who Remains. This was shortlisted for the International Booker Prize 2026. Y'all. Okay, this is one of those books where the writing style is quite odd. For some of the POVs, we have some letters throughout that are written kind of in, I would say, like a more normal, more normally structured way. But the structure of this is a little bit odd, and it took me like one chapter or story for my brain to click. And then once my brain clicked, it was so easy to read, and I couldn't stop reading it. I wrote, it actually felt like my mind melded with the speaker. This was so interesting. We are following one person who is raised in kind of the mountains of Albania, and some of these people still follow what is called the ancient laws of Kanu, which are like a set of laws kind of put together hundreds of years ago. So they're quite archaic. There's a lot of like blood feuds, a lot of kind of eye for an eye stuff. So like if somebody wrongs you, then you are allowed to kill a member of their family. But then because you killed a member of their family, they're allowed to kill a member of your family. And it ends basically with entire families dying, right? So there's just a lot of bloodshed. There's a lot of enforced gender roles, things like that. And so we are following our main character, who is in an arranged marriage, and due to events that unfold, decides that rather than go through with the marriage, they are going to swear themselves as a sworn virgin, which is you basically take an oath. Women of this culture can take an oath to essentially be a virgin for life, and they dress as men, they act as men, they are able to kind of have all of the rights that men have in the society, so they can inherit land, etc. And they decide that that is how they are going to live for the rest of their life. And of course, that leads to the beginning of a blood feud, etc., etc. So in this story, a journalist has come to talk to our main character, and they kind of tell us the story of their life, but it is interspersed with letters from their brother who has left the community and thus doesn't live by these laws, kind of lives in the modern world. And I really didn't know where this could possibly go until we get to probably the last third. Another character is introduced, and it just becomes this like heartbreaking, soft little book. And I really enjoyed it. I learned so much. I had Wikipedia open for like half of this, just looking up like, is this true? There's also a question of, as she's telling this story to the journalist, how much of this story is true, right? I just really enjoyed the reading experience. I highly recommend it. Yeah, I love when a book makes me crack open Wiki and learn things. She Who Remains, a very quick read, but highly recommend, really enjoyed She Who Remains. Okay, now, I already made a video about this on Instagram. Literally on my spreadsheet, this is the one book that doesn't even have any notes because I don't need notes. I remember it so well. I love this book. Pretty sure somebody in my comments recommended this to me, but then, hold on. So somebody in my comments recommended this, but also I was going through my old photos of when I was in Edinburgh and I just did a marathon of bookstores and I couldn't buy many books because I had carry-on luggage, unfortunately. So I took a lot of pictures of books that I wanted to look up later. This was one of them. So thank you for reminding me about a book that it had already caught my eye, but I had forgotten about it. Fate. I read The Children of Gods and Fighting Men. I also read the second book, and just yesterday, I finally got the third book from Libby. Oh my goodness, you guys. So this is a mixture of historical fiction and folk tales, fairy tales, I would say. We are in Ireland in the 1900s, so we are dealing with the Irish and the Vikings at the same time. We're also dealing with the, I tried to practice this, the Tuatha, the descendants of the original Irish gods. We're following them as well. So even though most of the humans in this are real and you can look them up and it's like very cool to be able to learn history in this way, we also have a subplot going of the Fae and sort of their war with the mortals. This is written for the Juliette Marier fans. Like, it reminded me so much of Daughter of the Forest in the way that they deal with time. Like, so many things. This takes place over decades, I believe. And because we're dealing with a lot of immortals, kind of the way, and also just like things moved slower, the kings played a really long game when it came to seizing power and things like that. So many things took so long. And because of it, I was just so drawn in. I don't know how to describe it. Like, because it was slow moving, I was paying more attention. I love all of our characters. I just think that she blended myth and fact so well. And I can't wait to read the next one. And I heard that she's actually extending it to kind of follow, like, this trilogy will be done, but she will kind of continue the world following a different generation. I can't wait. But really, if you loved Daughter of the Forest and you want something like that, I highly recommend you pick up The Children of Gods and Fighting Men. These books are like 500, 600 pages long. I have been eating them up. I can't wait to start. I think the last one is The Land of Something and Prophets. Anyway, can't wait. But yeah, if you were interested in Irish history and also Irish myth, I can't stop talking about it. It was amazing. The 500 pages flew by. Just highly recommend. I had so much fun with these. That is The Children of Gods and Fighting Men. I believe the series is called Gale Song. Read it. Okay, after that, I read The Children. This was highly, highly anticipated for me because I really I've read this author's writing before, Melissa Albert. She wrote The Hazelwood, which I find fascinating because from what I remember, the plot of The Hazelwood and the plot of The Children are quite similar. They clearly started from the same seed, and I remember liking the writing style of The Hazelwood and sort of wanting it to be a little bit tighter, a little bit better. And so I think she kind of did that with The Children. I just find it quite funny that she would make a book so similar to her previous one, or maybe that's just my memory being warped. And I also she had another one called Our Crooked Hearts. That one was weird too. She writes good, weird books. So The Children follows the children of this legendary fantasy writer. She wrote a series called Ninth City. Without asking her children's permission, the main characters of this book are named after her two children. So they have grown up not only in the limelight simply for being related to this author, but they've grown up with people truly believing that they know them. They have fans of Ninth City coming up to them and being like, oh my God, Guinevere, I've watched you grow up. I've been on all these, super parasocial and bizarre. Okay, so the story is told in flashbacks to their childhood as these books are being written, essentially. And then in present day, when they are adults, and our main character, Guinevere, is working on her own book, a kind of tell-all about this childhood. And while she's promoting that, she's also dealing with her brother, who she has not spoken to in years, promoting his new art exhibit called Mother, which could have a really huge effect on her memoir because she knows that she is sugarcoating her childhood, and her brother apparently has some shit to say. So yeah, I think that the concept was really interesting. You know that I love a book about a piece of media that doesn't exist. So whether they're talking about a movie or in this case, a series of books that don't exist, it just makes me so hungry to read them. And I think that she describes books really well. She did that with The Hazelwood. This was also about someone whose mother or grandmother was a writer of fairy tales, and the way that she described these fairy tales without actually writing the fairy tales, I think she does that so well. It made me want to get my hands on these books, But in my notes, I wrote that I think the book was good because of the pacing, but not because of the story. So I was racing to finish this book because I wanted to know how it ended, and I think that the way she paced it was quite interesting. The way that we kept flashing back and forth, I thought she did that really well, but once I finished it and I looked back at the story that was told, it didn't really have an impact on me. Unfortunately, I think her writing style is delectable. The way that she can write creepy, mundane things. A lot of the childhood is just them being kind of abandoned and forgotten, except for by their kind of eccentric actor turned painter father. They're really left to their own devices in this weird house up in Vermont, I think. The way that she can write those just slow summer days that are kind of creepy, she does that so well. So readable, yes. Beautifully written, yes. Plot, lacking, I think, unfortunately. But it was a vibe. I'm not going to remember it in a couple years. And I felt that way with The Hazelwood as well. So, kind of a letdown, but one that let me down after I finished it, if that makes sense. Instead of being bored while I was reading it, I was bored after, looking back, And I think that that's a lot. I always prefer that. Let's just say that. That's The Children. Let me know what you think, because I know a lot of you read it and have been waiting for it. Would love to know your thoughts. Next up, the reason I think I read a lot of books technically this month is because I read a lot of short books. So this is another teeny tiny book that I ate up in, I think, 2 or 3 long bus rides. I think this is less than 100 pages. Anyway, this is a teeny tiny dystopian story that I wrote, my notes are literally just intriguing and sapphic. Genuinely, need I say more? It's called Amatka, and it's quite interesting. We are living in a world separate from Earth, and we have various colonies. I don't want to go too much into it because the way that the world is built and the story unfolds is kind of the beauty of the story. But we're essentially dealing with a world where things need to be labeled and named. Like language is so important, and like the belief in something is so important. So like, for example, every morning when I pick up my phone, I would have to be like, phone, phone. And if I forgot for a couple days, my phone would melt into this really bizarre substance that everything is made up of, right? So I found that to be really interesting. Like every morning they got up and part of their morning routine was like computer, window, sofa, you know? So just the world in and of itself is quite interesting, but we're essentially following our main character who has been sent from one colony to another to do marketing research. Essentially, they want to sell more expensive soap. Her company wants to sell soap to this other colony. And so she goes to the colony to do research about their sanitation techniques. So when do they use soap? What's wrong with the soaps that they have? Like, what are their, So this particular writing style, I really love it when it feels like our character has a tiny little checklist and she just like very cleanly goes through her checklist. So like we wake up, now I have to go to the city hall to get these papers, and then I need to do this, and then like it just, something about the way that the story unfolded felt like it was, how do I describe this? My brain just really liked it. Okay, it really felt, I had the same pleasure reading this book as I get when at the end of the day I can check off my to-do list, and I don't know how that makes any sense. This also gets really sad, and I don't want to go too far into it, but we have friendships and betrayals and certain things that happen that make you question, what do we believe and why do we believe things, and what if we stopped, like collectively stopped believing these things, and what if the system as it is made is maybe not the best for everyone. And it gave me a lot to think about, and in such a short amount of time I think that it made me so connected to these characters, and I really enjoyed it. So that is Amatka if you're just looking for like a very quick dystopian. I believe this was written, this came out in 2012, and this was originally written in Swedish. Genuinely had a really good time. So that is Amatka. Okay. Everybody wants me to talk about this book. I've been waiting. I waited for, I think, 8-9 weeks at the library for this. Thank you to the San Diego County Library for buying a bunch of copies. I finally got my hands on A Beast Slinks Towards Beijing. Whoa. So I said this already on my main channel. I talked about it a bit. My main complaint about this book is that I wanted more time with each character, actually. So like the fact that my complaint is simply that I wanted more, kind of a good sign. So this takes place mostly in 2017 Chinatown, and then it also flashes back to the 1960s China, kind of during the Red August. We are following our main girl who is living in Chinatown, and one day her father just shows up, and we haven't heard from her father in years, and her father seems to have memory trouble. He might also have some substance abuse issues. We aren't really sure what's going on with him. He's not all there. And so as she is caring for him, he not only is kind of telling her some of his life, but we also get full flashbacks. The things that he has done that haunts him forever, and the lies that he has told to his daughter in order to kind of forget that life, because our main girl really struggles with the fact that not only her father but also her mother, they never talk about China. She doesn't even know actually what year her father was born, doesn't even know where he was from. She really doesn't know anything about her past, so she doesn't have any context for like, why is he acting this way? He goes on these like kind of drunken, dreamy rants about his brother, but like he doesn't have a brother, and we can't really figure out what is truth and what is just a story because we have no background information about this character. So I actually really liked that back and forth. And then we meet a third character, and I was thrown for a loop. This gets really dark, really fast, really heavy. So like be aware of that. And this is particularly why I wish we had more time with the characters, because I felt like to introduce the third character when it's introduced, I needed to know more about every single character at that point. It goes a little magical realism on us. I really enjoyed the reading experience. But like I said, I really wanted, even our main character, our kind of present day character, I feel like she got the least amount of time and growth. And maybe that's because she's working with literally the least amount of information possible. But yeah, I think that it did a really interesting job of giving us a lot of historical context and kind of showing how generational trauma works. I just wanted more of each character, if that makes sense. So overall, really enjoyed it, even though it was like really rough to read, especially the last POV. But I still highly recommend if you like historical fiction with a mix of magical realism. It felt very dreamy, hallucinatory at some points, especially the dad going kind of in and out of his mind, essentially. I recommend. That is A Beast Slinks Towards Beijing. The next book I did read physically, but I already donated it to my friend's lending library, so I hope that it finds a good home. But this is the true story of Raja the Gullible and his mother. Oh man, this was like 300 something pages. I read this in one day. I went to the park and thank God I didn't get sunburned. I don't know how, because I didn't look up from the page as the sun was moving over my picnic bench. I sat outside for like 3 or 4 hours devouring this. The true story of Raja the Gullible and his mother. This was so darkly laugh out loud funny. This covers a lot of really depressing stuff. We are talking where this takes place in Lebanon, following Raj's entire life. He is now, I believe, in his 60s. And so he was a young boy during the Lebanese Civil War, etc. And so he's gone through a lot, and like really like dark things happen to him. However, his mother is so, oh my God, the comedic timing, like their relationship is so laugh out loud funny, because they're just so mean to each other, but you can tell that that's just how they speak. I can't explain it, but I truly had the best time reading this. It got a little insane at the end, because we're basically told that something in his life happens where he is sent to the United States, and that's where we're gonna end. He's like, but I gotta give you some context. He's like, before you understand why I went to America willingly, you have to understand the rest of my life. And so then we go back and we get his full life story, and then we end up in the United States. And what happens is so like campy, stupid, ridiculous, funny. It genuinely felt like it popped out of a sitcom, even though like everything that led up to it was like incredibly dark. And I learned so much history about Lebanon and things like that. It was stupid, laugh out loud funny as well. So this was just such an interesting combination of things. I'm so excited to read anything that this author writes, because the characterization was just so good. So if you're interested in like what's been going on in Lebanon for the past 60 years with a side of really hilarious, borderline insane mother character, I went into this not knowing what to expect, and I had such a good time reading it. So this is the true story of Raja the Gullible and his mother. I honestly would love to see this on a screen, truly. Oh, this won the National Book Award? I did not know. Also, Raja is a queer man living in Lebanon for the past 60 years. So that just like adds another layer, and it was just so funny. It's so funny. So I actually highly recommend the true story of Raja the Gullible and his mother. After that, I believe I took a break for a while, and then I had a bunch of holds come in, so I needed to commit, and commit I did, with a book that I waited a really long time for, I think because it just came out actually, is The Shadow Reaper. The Shadow Reaper is written by the same author as The Prison Healer, which is a trilogy that was extremely readable. However, it was also painfully predictable. It was supposed to be like twist after twist after twist, but every twist was too obvious for my taste. Shadow Reaper commits the same crimes. It was almost insulting when a twist was revealed, like a big aha moment, and it was like, I called that from page 1. It's one of those things where like they introduce a character and you're like, bad guy, good guy, you know? It's painfully obvious. I literally wrote, it's insulting how obvious the plot twists were. Also, the entire plot hinges on these plot twists. So kind of the pacing and the excitement and everything only relies on these aha moments instead of giving us yearning, instead of giving us, I don't even know, anything else. We just had these like aha reveals constantly. And it was just, I don't know, I felt like it was a little bit written for like the TikTok brain. Almost. I wrote that the writing and the world building was very young YA. Kind of what I said with like these painfully obvious things. The way that the characters are built or the way that the characters are introduced felt really young adult. Like they really spelled things out for us way too easily. In contrast, the romance and the innuendos were a lot older, I thought. So kind of like how with Disney movies, you get all of these like hidden sexual innuendos that are meant for the parents and kind of go over the kids' heads. That's sort of what this felt like, except a lot more. The romance between our two main characters is very heated, but again, the writing felt a tiny step above middle grade. So it was just a very strange mixture for me. I also wrote that the dialogue was trying way too hard to be funny. I kind of felt like there was dialogue where I was just very aware of the author when I was reading the banter. Like I felt like I could feel her writing the dialogue and being like, this is going to be funny. People are going to like this. You know, instead of feeling like the characters were speaking, I was just very aware of the author, if that makes sense. I don't know how to describe it. It felt a little forced. It felt a little fake. And I will say, like, because of the writing style, it was really readable. So I could read it very quickly. But I just felt like, what was the age we were going for this? I don't know. It just felt a little too easy of a plot, you know? That is the Shadow Reaper, unfortunately for me. But let me know your thoughts, because I know a lot of people liked The Prison Healer. I think that The Prison Healer was written... No, I'm not going to make that claim because my memory of it is shaky, but I remember I read the whole Prison Healer trilogy. I don't think I will continue the Shadow Reaper series, if that makes sense. I feel like The Prison Healer was maybe stronger, but who knows? So let me know your thoughts, because I know that a lot of you guys liked The Prison Healer and like this author's writing. So don't let my review stop you. I think maybe this author just isn't for me. That is Shadow Reaper. All right, we're almost done. I also got my hands on Strange Familiars, which I'd been waiting for a while. It also recently came out. This, I found zero connection to the Hermione fandom. By all of my searching, has never been a fan fiction. This author has never written fan fiction. This author is a veterinarian. However, this was blatantly Hermione coded. Okay. We are following two students. They are both studying veterinary science at a magical school. One is a Nepo baby, super rich. To be fair, he is good at what he does, but he's still got this family history of being in the government and getting these jobs within the ministry and things like that. But also really shady and working for kind of these like weird corporations. Okay. And then we have our main girl who is also at the top of her class, but her parents don't have magic. She is very heavily reliant on getting a job placement within the ministry afterwards because she needs to support her family and things like that. They are going to lose their Chinese restaurant that they own and things like that. So it's sort of like poor, smart, non-magical family girl versus asshole-esque, rich, got a shit ton of connections, but also quite brilliant boy. And they are fighting for the top spot and they will get a job placement if they're number one, right? Okay, so I thought that this was actually really fun to read. The setup is basically something is happening to the magic. The magic is like how you access it is quite interesting. Like you actually have to pay for it or you need a familiar that you can kind of like recharge your battery with or whatever. Overall, like the magic system is quite interesting, but there's something wrong with it. It keeps surging or petering out and things like that. And they need to perform their final exams very soon. And if something goes wrong with the magic during their final exam, they're screwed. So both of them are like, I hate you, but who else is going to solve this but us? So they kind of go on a quest to figure out what the hell is going wrong with the magic in their world. I don't know, I had a good time. There are talking animals, particularly a talking cat that I found to be a really fun time. I thought that the ending, this is going to be a duology, at least a duology. I make no promises. There's going to be a second book, okay? And I thought that the way that it ended is very intriguing and makes me want to read the second book. But yeah, overall, it didn't do anything mind-blowing. Like I said, it felt quite blatantly Hermione-esque without having any connection. Like I said, I can't find a single thread of connection to it. This might have just been a coincidence, but it didn't blow my mind in any way. It just kind of felt like I was reading a different iteration of the same core couple, you know? That being said, it was fun. The side characters were interesting. Like I said, the way that magic is used was also unique. And the author is a vet. And so there were actually like scenes in which they were using their veterinary skills to help animals. And like there's a birth scene of, I don't know if it was a unicorn, some magical animal gives birth, and like it's pretty graphic. So yeah, I appreciated that element of it as well. So overall, I don't think it will make my favorites list, but it was a pretty solid read if you like academic rivals to lovers and talking cats. Okay. That is Strange Familiars. My next review is a rant. I'm still so mad about this book. I picked up The Hanging Tree. This is a historical fiction thriller. And I was like, okay, two of my favorite things. Amazing. Let's go. The reviews are stunning. Actually, hold on. Let me look. Is it still a historical mystery? Yeah, it has like 4.2 stars. All of the reviews I saw were really great. This is also part of a series. We follow our main character supposedly through even more stories. I don't fucking know. Wow. My notes, I wrote, I am honestly flabbergasted by the good reviews. I was on a historical fiction kick and this was so bad. I'm supposed to believe these are adults? Insane. Yeah, so, The Hanging Tree. We are following a writer who is on a writing retreat in England. She is staying at this manor with a couple others, similar actually to The Ending Writes itself. We have a bunch of authors that have gathered in this kind of historic old manor to just have a week of doing nothing but writing. That's all they're going to focus on, right? The only problem is our writer has a deadline and no clue what she wants to write. So she ends up learning more about the manor and how the manor is maybe haunted and what is the story behind the family that is the namesake of this manor, let's just say. All right. So we go down this rabbit hole of a literal witch hunt from the 1600s, I believe. And we get alternating chapters between what is happening in the 1600s, how this girl came to be accused of witchcraft and killed, and then present day, where our girl is investigating this, okay? This was diabolical. In terms of like what's happening in the past, I found that to be quite readable, interesting, whatever. Like I had a good time with that. Okay, whatever. Wasn't knocking my socks off, but like, fine. Present day, these characters were caricatures, like the evil characters were so evil, and they did not act like adults in any way, shape, or form. They were so annoying and dumb, and I have nothing positive to say about the present day part. I thought that the ending of the past was good, like great, whatever, fine. But wow, the present day was so bad. And like the present day characters are the ones who continue in the series. So I can't believe she wrote even more about these characters. It was wow. I could not believe these characters were supposed to be in their 30s or 40s. There was also supposed to be like this romance, and I have nothing to say. It was so dumb. Please don't waste your time like I did. I was crazy. I can't believe the reviews. That's The Hanging Tree. Hard pass. Hard pass. And now we've got two more. I promise I'm wrapping it up. I finally read Sorcery and Small Magics. This has been recommended to me over and over and over again. But I think because, what did I read that you guys were like, oh, you would like this? Because of something I had previously read, you guys came back at me, pushing me again to read Sorcery and Small Magics. So I'm here. Okay, I'm here. We essentially have academic rivals to lovers once again, and there is a curse gone wrong. So the magic system, you basically need teamwork. You need somebody who can create the spell, and then you need somebody who can cast the spell. Okay, you have people who write, and there are people who speak the spell into existence. So we have our academic rivals. Well, we have our... I can't even say lovers yet. All right, so we have our academic rivals who are forced to work together. And when a spell goes wrong, because they love pranking each other, because they are immature little wizards, a spell goes wrong, they are forced together, and they need to find a way to break this curse. I will say it got a little long, especially like the middle bit drags quite a lot, but this has a lot of forced proximity. I found that like it's not a twist, but like kind of the essential ingredient of breaking the curse was quite a bit obvious. But I will just have you know, if you are reading this because you love a forced proximity, academics rivals to lovers romance, let me tell you, there is no romance in this. This is a duology. No word, as far as I know, about when the sequel will come out. Oh, it's going to be a trilogy? Rude. So this came out in 2024. There is absolutely no news about when the next one will come out. And there was no romance. Like the slow burn, this is going to be a slow burn. And I got to the end and I was like, that's it? Like you can kind of put certain pieces together. But these are like very reluctant idiot boys, basically. Like they so clearly like each other, and then they're like, wait, what are these feelings? Like one of those kind of books. So if you're okay with a slow burn that has no second book in sight yet, go into it just knowing. But yeah, that's Sorcery of Small Magics. Very visual. I could see every scene that was going on. I do think it dragged a little bit. It got a little wacky at the end. Let's just say we're in a tower for longer than we needed to be, but I still had a good time with it. You know, I love academic rivals to lovers. So there you have it, folks. Sorcery and Small Magics. And then last but not least, I read Almost Life. I put this up as a story on my Instagram. Don't read the last chapter in public unless you are very okay with crying. I was luckily in the very back row of the bus, but yeah, there were tears running down my face, unfortunately, on the bus. Almost Life. We are following two characters. One is a young British almost college student, and another is a French college student who is, I think, about to graduate. They run into each other on the steps of Sacré-Cœur in Paris as our English girl is taking like her one vacation before she goes to university, her summer vacation. She's so excited to be in France. This is her first time leaving England. They don't immediately hit it off, but there is like some kind of spark where they just kind of want to see. They aren't ready to say goodbye yet, let's just say, and they don't know why. And what unfolds is a summer romance that, just made me want to be in Paris. It's just a lot of like going to galleries, sitting around, listening to music, drinking, sitting outside in the park. Really beautiful, getting to know each other, and romantic partners that are too scared to say that they like each other kind of thing. A classic case of one character needs to say, I don't want to leave at the end of summer, or I don't want you to leave at the end of summer, and neither of them do. So then we follow them through their lives, I think like 20, 30 years after, what happens because they didn't stay together after that one summer. And wow, super heartbreaking. It spans from the 70s to 2013, I think it is, flashing in between France and England. I thought the characters felt really real. There was so much toxicity, and like, just if people would talk to each other and like share their true feelings. And it was one of those cases where their lives, they were never like, Paris that summer for them was right place, right time. And every other time in their lives, they never got that right place, right time back. So they just kept missing each other and not being ready for each other. And it was just frustrating, but written really well. I think there were some parts, especially when we got to maybe like the second, third, where I felt like it dragged just a little bit, but overall, I really enjoyed it. I think if you liked Past Lives, the film, you would really enjoy Almost Life, and you will walk away with tears in your eyes. I also just really loved the writing style. This is when Kurt was off on his solo trip, so I was just kind of bopping to different cafes. We had like a gorgeous, gorgeous weather. And so I was just kind of like bopping from cafe patio to cafe patio, reading about them bopping from cafe patio to cafe patio. So I felt super immersed in this, and it was just kind of slow and beautiful and sad. So that is Almost Life. I personally really enjoyed it, and I recommend if you like sad books with a kind of doomed romance. That is Almost Life. And then two books that I didn't talk about, but I did read. If you normally watch my channel, you will see that I posted a Light Wielder plot summary. This is the sequel and the finale of this particular arc to Metal Slinger, which is a book that made me so angry that I had to make a plot summary about it. This one is arguably worse. I'm just so mad. Like it when we're talking about like the literacy crisis or like a lack of critical reading, right? There are reviews of this book that are like, loved the magic system. Oh my God. And it's like, tell me one thing about the magic system. Tell me one damn fact about the magic. There's no world building, no magic system. The politics are like insulting. We're at war, but for what? At the end of the book, not to like super spoil it, but there is a war, so people die. And we're supposed to be like, oh my God, badass girl. Like, yes, you go girl. You just like won the war. But actually, you just killed a shit ton of people who you grew up with and were potentially brainwashed. And also your friend has been killing people for the past 4. Like, there is not a critical thought about what death means and what war means and how, like, what about all of the civilians that were caught up in this war? It doesn't matter because our main couple gets together at the end. Like, this is my villain origin story. Like, our main character is like an abusive piece of shit. Oh my God, you can watch, I'm getting too angry. You can watch the plot summary and see if you can make a lick of sense out of it. That is Light Wielder. Unfortunately, I read that too this month. And then finally, for this month, next week, I will see you for our monthly thriller. I read Secret of Secrets by Dan Brown. This is Dan Brown's first book in 8 years, writer of the Da Vinci Code. And I needed to know why it was called Secret of Secrets. I was like, you waited 8 years and this is the book title you and your team came up with. I'm not going to spoil anything, but Kurt had to listen to me rant. I literally, he was still in Japan at this point. I sent him a voice note. And then when he came home yesterday, we had lunch and I had to rant about it again. Boy, do I have a lot to say about Secret of Secrets. So I will see you guys next week for that. Yeah. But overall, I feel like this was a month where I learned a lot. Like, I read a lot about things that I hadn't previously known, whether it was in Score by Kennedy Ryan, She Who Remains, I learned a lot, Children of Gods and Fighting Men, A Beast Slinks Towards Beijing, Raja the Gullible. Yeah, I feel like I snuck a lot of historical fiction in here accidentally, and I truly love historical fiction so much. So I feel like this month, even though I had a lot that I didn't like and a few that let me down that were highly anticipated, I feel really good about this month because I feel like my world expanded a lot, which is why I love reading. So yeah, that is what I read in June. I don't know if I will read as much in July because I have a lot of work to do, which is kind of why I prioritized reading this month. I finished it just like a few hours ago, so I want to let it marinate a little bit. But I did also read Pool House, and it's about a family, toxic dynamics, and a pool house that is infested with fruit flies. So yeah, I don't want to talk about that one yet because I really need to think about it a little bit more. But that is what I read. So let me know your thoughts about everything. Yeah, let me know your thoughts. And I will catch you guys next week for Secret of Secrets. I know a lot of you guys like to try and read the book beforehand so that you can try and solve it with me. Secret of Secrets is 700 pages and it shouldn't have been. So I just want to warn you, if you're going to go out and spend a lot of time with this book, maybe don't. Okay. But either way, I'll see you next week. Let me know what you're reading. Thank you again, as always, for all of your recommendations. And I will catch you guys next time. Okay. I promise tomorrow is when I start filming the Lord of Shadows book. So I promise you, after Secret of Secrets, you will be getting another Cassie Clare plot summary. But I just needed to talk about Light Wielder because I'm so mad. And you know what? Vindication, because a lot of people who liked Metal Slinger don't like Light Wielder either. So I'm like, finally we're seeing the light. Okay. Anyway, that being said, I'm chill. I'm calm. I'm fine. I just love reading, okay? I love books that give me some kind of reaction, good or bad. I will see you guys next time. Thank you as always to Squarespace for sponsoring this. Link down below, squarespace.com/carrie-can-read. Get 10% off your first website or domain. Join me, become a book vlogger, sell your artwork on a shop, make this year the year that you try a new project. All that information will be in the description box. And what did I just start? Looking Glass Sound, because it was recommended to people who enjoyed Widow's Bay. I don't know how I feel about it. I read the first 50 pages. We'll see. But anyway, thank you as always for being here, and I will catch you guys next week for Dan Brown. See you later. Hope you're reading something great. Okay?